Every other year a horse dies. This year was one of those years. A horse did die. The trainer, Sally Thompson, said it's your fault the horse died because the horse was frustrated because of the protesters, and that's why this horse failed the jump and died. What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's just...
There are concerns that this year's Grand National could be overshadowed by protests.
I believe that the reason why we're doing it is what's most important, and again, it's to draw this attention to our broken relationship with animals and the natural world and how this needs to change.
We're trying to protect those horses by being there on the tracks.
Some of those horses have better odds to die than they do to win, and we don't think that's right.
There's a developing situation here at Aintree. Some have been successful in getting over. This is a big news story as well as a sports story. With the Merseyside police. So we might well have a delay here at Aintree. There you can see what they are trying to do to get into the racecourse to try and disrupt the Grand National, and some, as you can see, have got onto the racecourse.
These 118 people have been arrested.
Those in the morning outside the race course.
I'm here with Ben Newman, an activist with the group Animal Rising, formerly known as Animal Rebellion. Ben, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
You guys, it just caused a bit of a ruckus, you could say, after what you did at the Grand National. Is it the UK's biggest horse racing event? Am I right?
Yeah. Well, in bets and like viewers, it depends how you measure it. But
Sure.
yeah, 600 million people watch it on TV and 300 million bet on it in bets.
I've been told from our mutual contact that you've got a particularly dramatic story about your experience at the event as well. So I'll leave it to you, mate. Tell us about what happened. Tell us about your side of all this, how it went.
So the Grand National, as I said, is the biggest horse race, maybe in bets and viewership in the world. And also important to notice that there's sweepstakes in pretty much every office in the UK. They'll do a sweepstake to bet on it. So this is a way to touch tens of millions of people quite easily. And so we were training up. We were not completely openly saying we were doing it, but we had about 300 people come through a day-long training. And we were giving talks around the country beforehand. About 2 weeks ago, it turned out we had a Daily Mail journalist. So the Daily Mail is the right-wing, one of the biggest right-wing press, right-wing newspaper in the UK, had been actually infiltrated. That sounds like make it more dramatic than it is, but since November, had been messaging with people and attended a training and filmed undercover footage. So we were on the front page of the Daily Mail about 2 weeks on the Mail on Sunday. About 2 weeks ago, saying we're going to come through. They're going to arrive. They're going to disrupt the Grand National just before it starts. Arriving in minibuses, wearing pink T-shirts with bolt cutters, going through the back fence and gluing themselves to the jumps. So on the day, I arrived in a pink T-shirt just before the race started. Bolt cutters, went over the fence and glued herself to a jump. But it really was, the level of policing was really, there were preemptive arrests and the rest of it. But about 118 people got arrested, and we delayed the Grand National by 15 minutes, all on live TV. So this really was, most people thought it was all over, but you really have an opportunity to double down when you've been exposed by the Daily Mail and give sort of invincibility vibe. So
you actually personally, you got to the jump.
Yeah.
But right.
Yeah. So I spent about 5 minutes being wrestled by G4S, the private security company. They'd hired a load of G4S people as well, because there were helicopters and police and quad bikes and everything. And anyway, spent about 5 minutes wrestling around with him. And then I just eventually just been dragged around, because we're all completely non-violent. I just been dragged around, and I was like, "Listen, mate, you're not a policeman." And then anyway, I just stood up, slithered in between the top of a fence and the bottom of the barbed wire, ran down a hill, then just ran straight up a fence, flipped over the top, and then was running down the middle of the Grand National at 5:10 with loads of police chasing me, and then took super glue out of my pocket, stuck around the jump, and then was immediately rugby tackled off. So yeah, I was one of a handful of people who made it onto the track. So yeah, it was, and you did have a brief moment thinking, what decisions have I made in life to find myself here at this time? But Yeah, so and this for us was because we relaunched. This was our relaunch. We'd rebranded 5 days before, previously as Animal Rebellion and as Animal Rising, and so this was our first action launching. So yeah, it was a very high pressure situation, having a Mail on Sunday, having a front page news, rebranding, and trying to pull off an impossible action. And it felt like chances of success were below. We were saying below 20% earlier in the day, but it was mediocre success because we delayed it, but unfortunately didn't stop it.
I think the takeaway message from that is don't hire G4S for your security. I mean, if they already had their hands on you and you were still able to get out, it's pretty crazy to me that you still managed to actually get anything done, considering they knew your entire plan. That's baffling to me. And again, it says a lot about G4S, maybe even the police too, that they knew the entire plan but still couldn't stop it. For those that don't know or aren't sure, maybe they're on the fence about you and this action, like what exactly was the goal? I mean, why get through? Why get through G4S? Jump over the fence, get to the thing, and glue yourself down and risk. You got arrested, actually, so you're not risking. You got arrested. Why do all of this?
Well, because billions of animals are living horrendous lives and having horrendous deaths, and we're destroying the planet in order to feed them all. That's why. Well, that's the reason, and the why, and I guess the how to change that is one. Yeah, we were stopping the direct harm happening to these horses, because in the Grand National, one dies every other year. But for us, the horses are just a small part of the picture, and it's about creating a broader national conversation about our relationship to animals in the natural world, and then probably towards later in the year, we're trying to bring people along a bit more about values rather than just hammering our solution, which is animal-free farming, a plant-based food system, get rid of all animal exploitation. We're connecting in values first with the broader public, and we'll be moving towards solutions later in the year. So I think we really have shifted opinion on this. So we're doing surveys, we'll get the results. But I think we actually shifted opinion overnight on the Grand National horse racing.
I think the Grand National was definitely a low-hanging fruit, as for example, dog racing would be as well. I don't think there's anything wrong with taking a low-hanging fruit. I think most people they care about horses, they care about dogs. So absolutely, why not talk about and go and do these actions at events that abuse them, right? It's interesting you got to that point already. I was going to ask you a little later on about some of the critiques that people were bringing up, and actually a couple of critiques I saw from vegans, and some of the main critiques from these guys that you just answered, they were saying it's what's the point? They were saying, what's the point? It's just horse racing. People are already against horse racing. Why do these single issue campaigns? And you already answered that pretty swiftly there, in that it's not about single issue for you, is it? You've got a wider picture.
Yeah, but also what we're in the game of, and this is why I'm here. This is why I'm here, David. Is in movement building. So we're building up, and this is what we've been doing for the last 3 years, putting the long, hard grind of building people power. And it's about, one, actions that inspire and capture the imagination, and that you can start to build a movement around. Because you can't just build a movement around just hammering plant-based food system. It's got to tap into values, and this is about right and wrong. So invite all of your viewers. So this is not doing this interview just for fun. Your vegan viewers, personal transformation isn't just about being a vegan. It's actually that's the first step, and it's about actually trying to change the world. And so you can go onto our website and you can sign up to take action, or you can donate. But most of all, David, on this as well, is that people with platforms like yourself could be stepping up and taking part in an open rescue. But we'll get to that later.
Oh, you're going to turn this around on me, are you? Yeah, we can get to that, definitely. I was actually hoping to touch on that near the end as to what's next for you, and then what can people do, right? Because there's a lot of ways people can get involved. So I'm glad we'll get to that. Before we get to that, though, I think this is something that's been going around. I'd like to talk to you about. You mentioned that every other year a horse dies, and this year was one of those years. A horse did die over a jump. I believe the horse broke their neck on the jump, right? And the trainer, Sally Thompson, I believe her name is, has blamed you for this. Not you specifically, as in Animal Rising. Said it's your fault that the horse died because the horse was frustrated because of the protesters, and that's why this horse failed the jump and died.
Yeah, it's just a load of crap, really. A horse died going over the same jump. It happens all the time. It happened in 2019, and it was just quite a desperate and sad point. And really, the point is, we didn't want the race to run, and they could have stopped the race. But Of course, they're not going to, because there's hundreds of millions bet on it, and the breeders want to make money off their horses winning. So yeah, I don't think anyone bought it. Yeah,
It's a good attempt, right? I can't imagine. I mean, the only people that buy into that are they're lost, aren't they? I mean, they're really lost. If you believe that shit, you really need to give your head a shake. That's one of the most feeble and pathetic attempts to put blame on protesters I think I've ever seen. And I've seen others. They do it when vegans or animal rights people, they go into a farm, right, and they'll do like a sit-in, and they'll say, "We had to kill all those animals because you guys came in biosecurity."
yeah,
Okay, versus what? What were you going to do if we didn't go in?
yeah,
I was going to kill all those animals, right? Okay, so how is that they do this, right? We know they do this.
yeah.
The next kind of thing I've seen going around from the same ilk of people has been with the they'll claim that the horse racing itself doesn't actually hurt the horse. They've got the best conditions ever. Riding horses is just great. It's good for the horse. The horses get tired. They get worked up if you don't ride them. They like running fast because that's what they do in the wild, and all these things with the best standards in the world. So no, there's nothing wrong with it. What about that? What's your guys' take on that?
We just shouldn't be breeding animals for our own purposes. That's the bottom line. So these horses are bred for it, and maybe some of them could have a worse life, maybe some of them could have a better life, but we don't need to be breeding animals for our own needs. And this is exactly the same logic for animal farming. But I think the truth actually is, I know they say this, the racehorses don't have this magical life anyway. Most of them lived in like confined stables, and they're broken in, and it's intense training, and then of course the risk of running. And I don't think horses might like running, but I don't think they like running over jumps with a tiny man on their back.
Probably not, right? Probably not. There are even a lot of vegans who defend this as well. They're saying the things that I've just said, that the horses, it doesn't hurt the horse to sit on them, and they'll say things like, this is the most common one I've heard: you can't force a horse to do anything. They say the horse will always do what they want to do. You can't force them to do anything. What do you make of that?
Yeah, you could force a human into submission, and the point is that it's not a level playing field. Like a part of being an adult is taking responsibility for those who are weaker than you. That's one of the key differences between an adult and a child. And some people never reach that and become an adult, no matter how old they become. And that applies to children, and that also applies to animals. And that's so it's so good. It's no good saying the child liked walking in the road, they got hit by a car. It's ridiculous.
If a child had the body of a bodybuilder, they might say, "Oh, well, you can't force them." Well, of course you can. They have the mentality of a child. That you can force them to do anything. You're more intelligent. It doesn't matter if they're physically stronger than you. That's the point, isn't it? That they seem to be overlooking. Yeah, you can't force a horse. Of course you can't. The horse will kick you or whatever, but you can mentally fuck with them until they do what you want. That's forceful. It's exactly what it is. What about these? So one more of these like silly critiques. Which, by the way, I'm playing devil's advocate here. It would be a boring interview if we just sat here agreeing, wouldn't it? So I have to ask these questions. You know what I mean? A lot of people, and I actually I'm a little bit empathetic with this one. A lot of people are saying it's they don't understand fully that this is it's wrong. So they feel like it's impeding on their rights. They feel like Animal Rising is saying you're not allowed to do what you want to do. Right? You want to go on to this event, you want to bet on this event. We're telling you not to do that. We're trying to actually not telling you not to do that. We're trying to stop it altogether. So how do you respond to those people who feel like their freedoms are being infringed upon?
Yeah, is it undemocratic to do disruptive protest? And that is and the answer to that is protest is at the corner of democracy, and you just have to put up with it. The protest is at the cost of a democracy. And I would say fair point if it was on a small issue, like when the bins are collected. It wouldn't be fair to mess with someone's day on that. But when we're talking about one of the 2 or 3 major moral issues of our time, so like industrial scale exploitation of animals, irreversible climate change, and maybe a couple of other issues like extreme human inequality, is proportionate.
And so would you consider you guys as are you an abolitionist organization? For those that don't know what that means, are you for the end of animal exploitation, full stop, or is it something else that you guys have as a name?
Yes. So we have two I guess in what we're working on, we got two big problems that we're dealing with. Is like massive exploitation of animals, 99% of them being in animal farming. So I don't want to get too confused about horse racing. That's the true beast that needs tackling. And number two is the destruction of the planet. So climate change being one of them, and endless land use being another. And both of them are very linked to animals, of course. And so it's human and non-human animals. Yeah.
So get into that a little bit, human and non-human. What do you mean with that?
So we're trying to stop the exploitation of all the non-human animals, but we also, of course, we care about humans too. And I guess that's just a distinction, because maybe some animal messages in the past might not have included humans, but we're also very much about trying to build a better world for everyone.
Because I actually just realized I wanted to ask you a few more questions about when you jumped over and stuff like that. What you were thinking. Yeah, so you can rewind your brain back to that moment. And then we'll do that. All right, cool. So after you jumped over the fences, or when you were about to jump over the fences, or when you got out of the truck, when you got out of the bus itself, what's going through your head? What's going through your head at that moment when you're thinking, okay, I'm about to go and throw myself illegally onto the racetrack?
Well, it's what I imagine base jumping to feel like. Off this like vibrating amounts of adrenaline. But I mean, I've got fairly hardened now, I suppose, because I did the two previous Beagle liberations, and I've been arrested, I don't know, 15, 20 times in the last couple of years, blocked the McDonald's distribution centres, organised the first round of Just Stop Oil, to the dairy campaign distribution centre disruptions. So I've got a bit used to it, but a lot of people the first time people are in this environment, I honestly can't tell you how much it's like almost going into shock. They're just like so much adrenaline and you just got to like go. But I felt fine. But so I felt fine, but it was, I was just so much stressed though, because if we didn't do it, there was so much pressure to deliver on it because of all the press and everyone doubted. Everyone was saying, oh, it must be cancelled, whether or not we were talking to vegans or talking to Richard Madley on Good Morning Britain. Everyone just assumed it's not happening. And you don't want to look like a bunch of sad, desperate chumps sort of just getting stopped in the minibus on the motorway.
Yeah, that's fair. They could have so easily gone that way as well, which is why it's even more surprising that you were able to execute any kind of protest, because they could have easily shut you all down. If they'd have found the bus, the police probably would have stopped it, and that would have been the end of it, wouldn't it? But I guess you got, I don't know, either lucky or just either really lucky or really smart. Let's say really smart. You guys nailed it.
A bit of both. A bit of both. It wasn't our first first time, I guess. But also they were really stupid. So I think because we had a protest out the front as well, and they must have thought that was what it was. So it was loads of police earlier in the day, and the later it got, the quieter the police. There were previously checks on roads. There were all times there were helicopters circling, and they just absolutely just dropped the ball about 30 minutes before it started.
I mean, again, that's G4S for you. I used to work in this industry, so I know how bad the crowd control security is, and the kind of people they hire, and nothing wrong with them, but they're people that are just working for a paycheck, right? They're not interested, and I've been one of them, mate. You just take that money, someone ran in. I'm not chasing them, mate. I don't get paid enough for that. That's how everybody acts basically in these orgs. So
just on that, I would say that it was actually really quite. What people weren't lax. So a lot of people actually got injured. I've never seen policing like this before. So they were pepper spraying. Someone had their collarbone broken. The police were being really, really violent, and including the G4S. Some passerby set a dog on someone. So people did get roughed up a bit. And I think it was just because of the humiliation.
Yeah, a couple of the G4S that I've come across. Guys, some of them who enjoy roughing people up and stuff, don't get me wrong. The vast majority are pretty useless though. But yeah, it's and the police, we know what the police is like. You get, it's flipped with the police. You get the odd one that's nice, but the most of them are excited to get their hands on and do something. So yeah, I did see some of the videos, people getting kind of thrown around, people who are clearly done. The police grab you, you're finished, right? You know you've been caught. They weren't trying to resist anymore, and they're still being really angry and aggressive to them. And you're probably right. The humiliation aspect is what it was. Is that being chased up? Is anything being done about that?
Yeah, so I think people are going to be putting complaints. There may be some civil. So when police use, because I'd like to say normally the police are quite unviolent, because we're non-violent in the way we carry ourselves. This is quite an unusual situation for us. But so some people will be probably having civil cases against the police or complaints. And also, so we're about to get everyone to write in a complaint to Ofcom around ITV's coverage of it, who they were almost encouraging violence as well. So we'll be doing a couple of bits.
I also heard there was something with the BBC coverage as well, that they were that they probably all do it. They purposefully avoid covering the accidents or whatever. It's not an accident, is it? They're pushing animals to their extremes, so it's an inevitabilities. When these animals get injured, they kind of refuse to cover it, don't they? Or they remove it from replays and things like that. They try and hide it, which so a lot of people talking about, because that really doesn't help you, right? Because that's the reason that, well, one of the reasons you were saying you were there was this, and then they try to actively hide it, so it makes you look bad, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It makes you look like liars.
Yeah, that they really couldn't, because the horse Hill 16 died straight away. That's just completely blown up. So I think previously it's gone quite unnoticed, but this time it really hasn't.
And it's great that you, if you weren't there, it may not have blown up anywhere. It wouldn't have blown up anywhere near as much as it did because you were there.
Yeah,
because you've been saying this on TV. You personally have been saying this in interviews, and others as well, that this is why, one of the reasons why you're there, that horses are killed here. And then it happened. It literally happened right there. So it blew up even bigger. That you were right, and people care.
And people left the Grand National crying. So I think both of our protest, like making people stop and think about it, because this is how protest works. For the first time, people stop and think about it. And then when people saw the death, which they were combined with that, people were left the Grand National crying, saying, "I'm never going back again."
Which is brilliant. It's like I said earlier, it's a low hanging fruit. It's easy to get people on board, I think, and that's all the more reason that to do a protest like you guys did as part of your bigger plans, because it's definitely easier to win people over on this versus eating meat, right? For example, Grand National once a year, horse racing events, maybe they'll go to 1 or 2 a year, whereas versus something they do every day. And I think the more these small wins that you guys can get, and that we as an overall community movement, whatever you call it, the more small wins we can get, and hopefully hope they'll come together into big wins, won't they? Open people's minds to what happens to animals. For those that are criticizing and saying single issue, it's not good, etc., etc., what would you recommend they do then? These guys, how like with Animal Rebellion, to convince them that this is a good thing to do? Like, how would you convince them? What would you tell them to do? Would you say, like, come to one of our events, or would you say, I don't know? Yeah. What's your take on that?
Well, clarify, it's not single issue. It's just the target naturally lends itself to horse racing. So yeah, we're not single issue. I mean, our true target, our eyes, and at least mine, are very focused on animal farming. But it's how do we tackle it is the question. So yeah, we've had a lot of armchair strategists come out the woodwork over the last few days. So absolutely, what I'd invite people to do is so I just reassure it's not a single issue thing at all. Mm-hmm. And actually, so I don't know who these people. I think Ronnie Lee, for example, came to one of our trainings a couple of weeks ago. So I asked people to follow in Ronnie Lee's footsteps and go on our website and all these others and come to a non-violence training, which is a day training, which is a bit like our onboarding, and get involved that way, or come to a talk online. And you can see, if people go on our website, they can see. So yeah, that's what I'd say to them.
If you're going to criticize someone or something, the least you could do is go and hear them out and see if actually you've got it wrong, which in this case, they clearly have got it wrong. And I knew this from when I was, seeing these critiques. I was thinking that, it's very short-sighted to think that's all they're doing, but that's the internet these days, isn't it? Just people just put out their opinions without thinking twice about it. And then what about, so people who do support and they see what you're doing, they're inspired, would you give them the same recommendation? Would you say, come to a training, or what's next for you guys that people, if you can tell us something that people could maybe start to look towards?
So I'll tell you, we're doing a few things. So this year we've launched Animal Rising, and we've got 3 different streams really of that. And we're doing one of them, we're doing open rescues and farm occupations. Number 2, we're disrupting high profile racing events. And number 3 is we'll be doing what we call public facing disruptions. So that's in the supermarket sit-ins, restaurant sit-ins, and then potentially later in the year we'll be blocking roads. So these are the 3 action streams, and they're all done in the spirit of accountability. And that's new to animal. That's been used very effectively in the climate space for Extinction Rebellion, but we're bringing it into the animal space. And this is what we've been doing for the last 3 years with Animal Rebellion, but we're going to be doing it and really take off this year as Animal Rising. So we've changed name for kind of that reason. It was just holding us back and called Animal Rebellion. And then, so people should come along and train and get involved with that. But we also actually do what people don't know is other things. So we run the Plant-Based Universities campaign. So you might have seen passing motions. We're in 40 universities passing motions for 100% plant-based campuses. We're doing the same in councils. And then we've also got farmer dialogue teams. So we're trying to have exponential takeoff of the animal movement in the UK. And as part of that, we're building this ecosystem of projects that all work together. So yes, there's lots of different ways to be involved, even if you're not hardcore.
So where would they start then? So that if someone's got an interest in any of that stuff, what's step 1? How do they get involved?
Go to animalrising.org and fill out the form, which is on the landing page. That's what you do. That's what you do.
Cool. That's easy.
And if you can't do that, donate. That's how you can get involved.
Perfect. And what was you wanted to get into something earlier about influence again? What have you got for influencers then? What did you want to get into?
Yeah, so this is with all of these actions. I'll give an example. Open rescues. And we hope to design them to be a massive story and have a massive reach. But some people have bigger reach than others. And with with power comes responsibility. And we'll be certainly moving this year to move towards getting notable people and also those with a platform. So to be taking part in these actions and go through the whole court process. So if a charming person like you, David, were to come and do an open rescue, you could do it, and then you'd be talking about it on your platform afterwards and inviting others to do the same. You know, it would be a great help, and it would be some great content as well. So
yeah, no,
you have my number. You have my number, and I'll be sending you a message afterwards.
Well, quoting Spider-Man at me is the number 1 way to win me over on any topic. So you've already got me just on that. But no, you're totally right. Yeah, you're totally right. And in the past, there definitely was before, I think pre-pandemic days and a little bit before that as well, there was definitely a lot more influencers getting involved in these kinds of actions. I don't know what exactly happened since then, but it seems like it went back into a kind of, I don't know what the word would be, but it went back underground, I suppose. It became more of a thing again that really hardcore activists do, but that others didn't really want to do anymore. That's from my perspective, and I'm not sure what changed. Maybe people got more scared after the lockdowns and stuff. Maybe people just kind of didn't want to go back out anymore. I don't know what it is, but I'm glad to hear that you guys are picking that back up again and making this an action that people will start doing again, as well as other stuff. I think it's really important that there's a group that's so visible like you doing these kinds of things. And will that be all over? Is it you're UK based, but you have groups in other places, right?
So with Animal Rebellion and Extinction Rebellion, it created this sort of just globe. So there's an Animal Rebellion Germany, Animal Rebellion Netherlands. But what we're going to keep Animal Rising, our vision is we're going to launch Animal Rising. It's going to be UK only, but then we're going to build a global network of animal groups using the same model, but with their own identity. This is what, if anyone follows this stuff, what Just Stop Oil did in the UK, and then they launched Last Generation in Germany. And there's all the 15 most effective climate groups in the Western world, but all launched over a period of a year, all with a different name and their own identity. So we hope to launch a global and linked network, but it won't be under one brand name. So we're just going to be keeping Animal Rising to the UK because it's relevant to our context, because for a variety of reasons.
Sure. Okay, fair enough. Well, we'll look forward to seeing that then, and I hope that there'll be some opportunities for people outside of the UK as well as in the UK to get involved. So everybody who's interested, that's what to do. Go on the website. The link is right there in the comments, and in the description. So get over there and pop your information in. Ben, it's been great to have you here, mate. Is there anything that you wanted to finish on that I didn't get into?
No. Well, I would say not everyone's hardcore. Lots of people. It was their first action. And not everyone's like a mixture of ages and abilities, and it's really for anyone. And it's it's great fun. Living in line with your values is great fun. So get involved.
I totally agree, mate. The list of actions that you gave, suitable for all types of people who have got all types of confidence levels, and and get out your comfort zone or stay in your comfort zone, but do something. Right, that's the point. You guys have got something for everyone. So again, I really appreciate you coming on, mate. I can't wait to see what you guys get up to, and really hope I can get involved in some of it as well when I'm back in the UK.
Looking forward to it.